Hello, friends and fashion lovers. Welcome and welcome back. Thank you for all your love and support, and thank you for clicking on this video. In today's tutorial, I'll be sharing with you how I made this circle box pleated dress and also how I made the bow. Please stay on. If you're here for the first time, my name is Esther and I love to draft and sew. If that sounds like what you're interested in, please click on the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so that you get notified each time I upload a new video. Thank you. Without much of ado, let's get right into the making of this dress. For this tutorial, you can use any fashion fabric of your choice, a lining, a zipper, and a tulle. A tulle is needed if you want extra volume. I ended up not using a tulle for this dress. Let's get into the pattern drafting. I am starting with the bodice and I'm marking a zipper allowance because my dress will have a zipper at the back and I'm going to be drafting for both the front and the back. Then I go ahead to mark the shoulder line, and on that shoulder line I'm going to put half the shoulder width measurement plus seaming allowance. You want to put half the shoulder width measurement plus your seaming allowance. Then the next thing is I go ahead and mark the neck width. So any neck width of your choice would do. Then the shoulder slope and then the chest line. With this, I'm just going to confirm and connect my measurements. Then I go ahead and mark the neck depth. I'm marking the neck depth for the front and also for the back. Then connecting them nicely and indicating them. On the chest line, I am going to put quarter of the chest measurement, the round chest measurement plus ease and seaming allowance. Then go ahead and put from my shoulder to the waist measurement plus seaming allowance. Then I just went ahead and took the same measurement I have on the chest line to use on the waist line. For a more defined waistline child, you can use quarter of the waist measurements plus ease and seaming allowance. So with this, our bodice is almost ready. I just love to go to the side and take about ½ inch and blend that out nicely. It's just a personal thing. And also, I'm going to connect the armhole. So I have a different armhole for the front and for the back. So if your child has a bit of a tummy, this is the part that you end up adjusting the front bodice for it to be slightly longer than the back bodice. But this child has no visible, tummy. So that's why I just left it like that. So I'm going to mark where my cap sleeve will stop. So giving a little bit of gap at the top for my shoulder seam, I have marked down where I actually want the cap sleeve to stop. So you do well to do this before cutting out your pattern so that you'll be able to notch it on your fabric. So I cut out the back, then I adjust my pattern and cut the front. So now to my cap sleeve. For the cap sleeve, I'm just marking the cap's height. Then from that cap's height, I'm going to add extra 2 inches. That extra 2 inches will help me to hem my sleeve and also give it a slight gather. Then I go ahead and put my round sleeve measurement at that point. So that's what you do. At this point, just put the round sleeve measurement, then you connect to form your cap sleeve. And personally, I just love to go in by have an inch and give it a slight curve. It's a personal thing. I just like the way it sits when I do that. Then the cap sleeve pattern is ready, so you just label and indicate how many times you are cutting your sleeve, and your front bodice is obviously going to be cut on fold, and how many times you are cutting your back bodice. So here I have my fabric on fold, meaning that my front will be cut on fold and I'll have 2 pieces for the back. And also, don't forget to notch. Notch. Please put your notches back. So here are my pieces I cut for my fashion fabric and also my lining. That is my front. And also my back, I have also cut for my fashion fabric and also my lining piece. So I'm just placing them right side facing. And I also have my sleeve. I'm using the same fashion fabric as the lining for my sleeve. So I've placed all of them right side facing, the back and the front, the men's sleeve and the lining. And I'm going to go ahead and stitch the shoulder of my bodice and also hem my sleeve. After hemming your sleeve, you can top stitch by pushing the raw edge to one side and giving it that a nice stitch. So here I have stitched my shoulder and also I have top stitched my sleeve. So it's time for me to attach my sleeve to my bodice. So I'm going to find the center point, and after finding the center point you can go ahead and stitch this. But since I had given my sleeve a slight gather, an extra inches for a slight gather, so I'm just gathering it up a bit before attaching it to my bodice. So you do that, and giving your bodice a notch before now will aid you to know where your sleeve will stop. So here I've pinned my sleeve. I'm going to go ahead and stitch that in place. So you need to make sure that you have them right side facing. After stitching your sleeve in place, you should have it looking like this. So go ahead and pin it out of the way. You want to pin it in such a way that you are not going to catch the sleeve while you are sewing. So it's time to finish the bodice. Just place your lining piece on your fashion fabric right side facing. It's always important to match that shoulder seam. After matching the shoulder seam, go ahead and stitch the armhole. Make sure you have the right side facing. Leave the zipper allowance inch and stitch the neckline. Don't stitch your zipper allowance. Don't stitch your zip part close. So after that, just go ahead and give it some notches. You want this to be notched nicely. Cut back on the seaming allowance, especially along the armhole, and push the back through the shoulder and pull it through the front. If you have watched my video, you have seen this on almost all the videos. So now turn your bodice right side out. So this is how it looks. So you can understitch that, the neckline and the armhole. Just for an extra step, I just popped on this front band. So I'm going to go ahead and complete the side of my bodice by placing right side facing the fashion fabric on the fashion fabric and the lining on the lining. So you want to match especially that armhole seam that you made. And when you're done pinning and securing it in place, go ahead and stitch the side of your bodice. If you have stitched the side of your bodice is ready. So I'm going to set this aside and I'm going to be working on the skirts. It's important that you pay attention to what I have on the screen and please what I have to say, because I wouldn't want you to make a mistake. So the formula for calculating for a box pleated skirt is waist measurement times 3. If you're unsure of your waist measurement, you can go ahead and measure your just completed bodice. So waist measurement is times 3 because you need times 3 of the fabric of your waist measurement in the fabric to form a box pleat. So that being said, don't forget to add your zipper allowance to it. And to have a circle box pleated, you need to divide that new box pleats waist that you just calculated by 6.28. 6.28 is the formula for a circle skirt. So if you have done that, you will have the amount that you need for the radius of your box pleated circle skirt. Then another important thing to note is how much are you going to pleat. You divide your desired numbers of pleats. Assuming I have a waist of 30 and I want 10 pleats. So I'm going to go ahead and divide 30 by 10, which will give me 3. And that is, I'm going to be having each pleat to be 3 inches. That way, everything will be proper. So depending on the numbers of pleats you want, you divide the waist measurement you have by the number of pleats you want. I would love you to pause and look at the screen and make sure that you get this formula for how to calculate a pleated box skirt, and also how to convert your pleated box skirt to a circle pleated radius. So for how I fold my fabric, I'm just going to use paper as an illustration. So firstly, I fold it lengthwise, then I fold it widthwise. I have a tutorial on how to cut a circle skirt, so you can check that out. So you have to fold it lengthwise and widthwise. So just because it's important, I am going to show you how I got the radius. So right here, I'm just marking out the radius of my skirt. So that is the formula for the radius. Please, this waist measurement, you multiply it without the zipper allowance. So you take out your zipper allowance before multiplying, and after multiplying, you add your zipper allowance. That way, you are sure that your zipper allowance is separate from your pleats. So here I have marked my radius. The next thing to do is to mark the skirt's length. How do you know your skirt's length? You already have your desired dress length and you have your bodice length. Go ahead and take your bodice length away from your desired dress length. That is how you have your skirt's length. And please don't forget to add your seaming allowance, because you'll be attaching the skirt to your bodice and you will also hem the skirt. So 1 inch seaming allowance is good if you are roll hemming the skirt. So here I'm just marking the length of my skirt and I'm connecting it. So this way I'm going to cut. The pattern is pretty much ready. So as simple as that, you can cut your circle pleated box skirt. I hope that was simple enough. So I'm just going to notch this because I'll be opening one of the side, just one of the side. That will be my center back. For the lining of the skirt, you want to keep it very simple by having the waist measurement divided by 6.28, and this lining is a regular circle skirt. And for the length of your lining, it has to be at least 1.5 inch shorter than your main skirt. You want it shorter than your men's skirt because you don't want it peeping out of your men's skirt. So with this, I've cut my lining and I'm going to cut open the center back while I notch the center front for easily assembling. So this is my skirt. So now for the pleats, I am marking out my zipper allowance of 1 inch first. You know, when I told you to know how much pleats that you're going to have, you're going to divide your waist measurement by the numbers of pleats you want on your skirt. Yes, divide your waist measurement by the numbers of pleats you want. Then whatever value you have, use that value to mark your skirt. And I had cited an example of having a 30-inch waist and you want a 10 pleats for your skirt. So all you do is mark 3 inches all through. So the same thing goes for a smaller waist or a wider one. So if you have done this calculation, at the end of the day, you should be left with just your zipper allowance at both ends. So I'm just beginning to pleat and pin. I've already marked how much I'm pleating, so I'll just pleat and pin, taking note to leave my zipper allowance out. This work for box pleat or inverted box pleats, as long as you need to pleat it in a box form. This formula works. At the end of the day, you should also have 1 inch zipper allowance at the other side. So I'm going to take to my sewing machine and stitch this down so that I can take off my pins. So I'm going to stitch and secure this in place. So here I have stitched and secured this in place. You can see how it looks. So this is my lining piece and this is my bodice piece too. So I'm going to go ahead and pin my bodice and my skirt. You want to do this right side facing, starting from your zipper allowance, assuming you had notched your zipper allowance on your bodice. Just place it and pin in place. So you want to keep pinning. So just a quick recap. If it seems that it was too fast, the calculation was too fast, you can go back, pause, and take a look at it. It's so easy and it's a foolproof kind of calculation for a circle pleated box skirt that has worked for me. And I'm sharing it because the secret is mine to share, of course. So take your time when it comes to the calculations and you will get it right. Trust me with this. So just pin your bodice to your skirt. Please, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. And if you have learned anything in this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Thank you. And when you're done pinning your bodice to your skirt, it should just fit perfectly. You're not supposed to have excess if your calculation is right. But in case you have excess, don't worry, try and try and try again. You will get it right eventually. Everybody tries from somewhere. Everybody started from somewhere. No one was born a guru at anything. So please, just keep trying. You can do this. You can. I just believe in you that you can just do this. So I'm just pinning my lining. My lining as well is pinned right side facing. So my lining to fit as well. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch my main fabric and my skirts. So I'm going to stitch them. So you want to make sure that the right side are facing each other. This is important for those that want extra volume. It's important that you would have added tulle to your lining. But in case you did not add before attaching it to your bodice, you can still add tulle to your lining. So I'm going to stitch that down, and I'm going to also attach a zipper to this dress. So remember that I didn't stitch my zipper allowance. So here is my dress. It's pretty much finished, and I've attached the zipper to it. And not just that, I've also gone ahead and hem the down part of my dress and also my lining. So there's still something missing in this dress, even though it can be worn this way. And what is missing is the bow, the big fluffy bow that is nice to touch. So I'm just determining how wide I want the bow to be at the back. I want a 10-inch bow, that is 5 inch on either side. So I'm going to double that. So I want a 10-inch bow. So here I am going to measure 21 inch. 20 inch is actually for the bow, while the other 1 inch is going to be for my seaming allowance. So another thing I'm using for this bow is an horsehair braid. So my horsehair braid is 7 inches wide. So that also helps to determine how big your bow will be, the height of your bow. So I'm using a 7-inch wide horsehair braid. And while folding my fabric, I am going to place my fabric on fold, and on fold it is going to be a 7.5-inch, meaning when open up it's going to be 15-inch in height, while the width depends on how big you want your bow to be. For, of course, for a smaller child, you would want a smaller bow so that it can just fit to the back of the dress. So for this child, a 10-inch, that's 5 inch on either side, is what I want. So make sure to double that width. So I needed 10-inch and I doubled it to have 20. For my seaming allowance, I added extra 1 inch. And the height of the bow is the height of your horsehair braid plus half-inch seaming allowance when your fabric is placed on fold. So with that said, I'm just going ahead to cut out my fabric for the bow. So if you have cut this out, you're going to have a rectangle like this. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch this rectangle, making sure to have the right side facing. So after stitching, I'm going to place that center seam, the center of my rectangle or bowl to be. So just make sure that you have that center seam placed at the center, and you're going to iron open the seam, because you don't want it shifted to one side. You want it flat and ironed open. So after that, just turn it right side out. When you turn it right side out, you should also have that center seam at the center of your rectangle. So now I'm just going to measure my horsehair braid and cut. So just thread your horsehair braid in the middle of your rectangle. So it should fit nicely if your measurement was correct. So I'm going to stitch this like so. So make sure that will be the right side. You make sure that when you're stitching, you're actually, this center piece should be facing, the right side should be facing the right side. So after stitching, you can turn it, flip it over so that the seam will be concealed and everywhere will be smooth on top. So here my long piece is measured 3 inches and it's actually long. So I'm going to be adjusting the center of this my bow then I'm going to go ahead and pleat it. Yes, horsehair braid is very malleable, so you can adjust your bow exactly how you want it. So anyhow you want, whether you want to double pleat the side before the center, just play around with it until you get what you want. So personally, I love to really find the center, and I love to hold on to the center while I plait the side. So it's a matter of choice. It's not like a one way to do this. So after deciding on how I want it, I'm just going to take a thread and give it a nice tie. This tie I am doing is just to have this bow in place. So I'm going to trim the remaining thread off, then put this to complete my bow. So the width is actually 3 inches. So you want to make sure that the center point that the seam is running is what you're actually stitching on it first. So after stitching, just flip that over to conceal the seam. If this part is unclear, just let me know. I can make a separate tutorial only on the bow. So flip that part to conceal the bow. So now you have your bow ready. The next thing I like to do is to use a push button on this. So I like attaching my bow with the head of a push button to my dress. So whether you want to glue it on, whether you want to stitch it on, this is just it at this point. So the dress is ready. I just hope at this end of the tutorial you've been able to take something with you, either making of a bow or making of a circle pleated skirt, because if you've really taken something, that has made my day and I'm so happy about that. So thank you for watching to this point. I will see you in another tutorial. Bye for now.